Andrew, Alexander, and Tanya are all missing. Their mother, Tanya Skelton, had custody of the boys. John took them for a court-ordered visitation and never returned them. The last time anyone besides John saw them was at 5 p.m. on November 25th. John stated he gave the boys to a woman named Joann Taylor. He met her on the internet several years before and asked her to return them to their mother. He said he did this because he planned to commit suicide and didn't want the boys to see it. John attempted to hang himself later that day but survived and was hospitalized. Authorities issued an Amber Alert for the brothers, but they could find no sign of them and no indication that Joann even existed. They said they believed John's story about Joann Taylor was fictitious and were investigating the disappearances as homicides, and John was the prime suspect. They said John's blue Dodge Caravan was on the Ohio Turnpike along the Michigan-Ohio border between 4 o'clock and 7 a.m. on November 26th and asked anyone who saw it to come forward. It has the Michigan license plate number 9JQH93. He was charged with 3 counts of felony parental kidnapping, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 3 counts of false imprisonment. At a court hearing in December 2010, he changed his story, saying his sons were in the care of an organization, which he at first refused to name. He later said it called United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuaries. In mid-September 2010, he withdrew Andrew and Alexander from school and went to Florida without Tanya's permission. Tanya had to go to Florida and have the authorities force John, under threat of arrest, to take the boys back to Michigan. After they got back, Tanya filed for divorce. She did it to secure custody and prevent John from taking the boys out of the area again. Her and John were in counseling with hopes of a reconciliation. The children's parents were in the middle of a bitter custody battle. Tanya was at one time a registered sex offender. She pleaded guilty to misdemeanor, 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct for having a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old neighbor boy in 1998 when she was 32 years old. In response to her divorce filing, John had asked the court to sever her parental rights based on her sex offender status. The judge refused to do so. After the children disappeared, John said he had feared Tanya was abusing them, but investigators can find no evidence of abuse. In July 2011, John took a plea deal with prosecutors and pleaded no contest to 3 counts of false imprisonment. The kidnapping charges were dropped. He could have faced life in prison if convicted of the original charges. Instead, he was sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison, a term that exceeds the state sentencing guidelines. John has stated his children are still alive, but will never be returned as long as their mother has custody of them. His relatives and Tanya don't believe he would have harmed them.